have this meeting in. We supported an election because we forced Boris Johnson to take no deal off the table. Today is 2 days after he promised that he would die in a ditch rather than do what he was forced to do. And our position is always take no deal off the table, and we will then support having an election. I've wanted an election ever since the last one. I wanted one to go out there with our campaigning message, go out there with our message of social justice. And I'm here today to support Fran, fantastic candidate, fantastic work. Of somebody who can represent Gloucester, speak up for the people of Gloucester, and speak up for the people that need to be spoken up for. Those that have lost out because of austerity, those that have lost their homes because they can't afford the rent anymore, those that rely on local authority services that are not there, those that have suffered because of 10 years of austerity. So this campaign is about many, many things, but particularly that. I just say this on Brexit. Those that voted Remain or those that voted Leave, both did so for reasons. But if you are in the private rented sector, in Gloucester, you're up against it, universal credit, difficulties over benefits, 0 hours contract jobs, insecurity, you possibly voted Leave. If you live in London, paying excessively in the private rented sector, 0 hours contract job, and all that goes with it, you voted Remain. You did that for reasons, but you have the same common interest in getting rid of this government. And brought us the misery that we've got. And so, we have sought to bring people together. My whole strategy in dealing with Brexit is that whether you voted Leave or Remain, you have actually the same interests. And so, we said we would not allow Boris Johnson to take this country out with no deal, knowing full well his real purpose in a no-deal exit was to go straight across the Atlantic into the arms of Donald Trump and a free trade deal with the United States, knowing full well what that would do to us, our economy, our way of life, and above all to our public services. And when they claimed, as they did, that the NHS wasn't really part of the trade deal, forgive me, I'm a naturally suspicious person, particularly where Tories are concerned. And we said, well, if there's nothing in it, why all these secret meetings between British officials and American big pharmaceutical companies? What have you got to hide other than preparations for a deal? And when President Trump himself said American companies wanted access to the British healthcare market. Now, I know some people have a strange use of English on many occasions. But the last time I looked, our health system was not called the National Health Market. It was called the National Health Service. Closed down in 1948. Yeah. Well, that Labour government that brought us the NHS. Yeah. Let's get it clear. Our NHS is not for sale. 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 In the circumstances, and indeed, I want our NHS to go further. further. I'm fed up with the way the NHS is exploited by some big pharmaceutical companies with excessive charging for patented medicines. And so we will do everything we can where there's been a public investment in the patent development to get that patent into public hands, and we will set up an NHS-owned pharmaceutical company to provide generic available for those that needed it. Suddenly it was made available. How many more drugs could be made available if we had an NHS that was funded properly to make sure that happened? So I'm utterly determined on that. And on Brexit, we will, within 3 months, negotiate with the EU an agreement which will be a customs union, market access, dynamic protection of rights, and we'll put that alongside the Remain option of a referendum within 6 months. And we will to everyone in the Labour Party that contributed to this debate at our conference and before, and came to this agreed position. So we go into this election campaign as the adults in the room. So our campaign is about that choice that's going to be put there, but it's also about so much else. I'm fed up with the way in which our public services are being continually run down since austerity came in 2010. Let's just be clear about this. 2010, yes, there was a problem, a financial crisis and problem. Nurses, doctors, hospital porters, street cleaners, care workers, factory workers, homeless people, people with disabilities, none of them caused the financial crisis of 2009. It was caused by an unregulated world banking system. It was caused by the greed of those that would make so much out of it. And then there was a political decision, not an economic decision, a political decision taken in 2010 that we would have austerity in this country. That was taken by the coalition government, the Lib Dems and the Tories together. And what was the result of that? Student fees up by 300%. What was the result of that? Homelessness at now record levels. What was the result of that? Local authorities underfunded. What's the result of that? Youth centres boarded up and closed. Benefits cut. Those with disabilities suffering more and more. What was the result of all that? A 25% loss in spending power by working class communities over the past 10 years. What's the result of that? Record levels of personal debt. Austerity very obviously hits the poorest very hard. Those that are rough sleeping, those that are living in overcrowded flats, those that are paying excessively in the private rented sector. Very obviously affects them. Affects those on 0 hours contracts trying to make ends meet. But it also has lots of other effects. Those in middle age who think, well, my children are grown up, I can now begin to relax a bit and enjoy life, suddenly find their children at uni can't afford to make ends meet. What do? Borrow money, go into debt to put their kids through uni. They then find elderly parents in desperate need of social care, which is simply not available, or what is available is insufficient. So what happens is nearly always affecting women. Women give up work in order to care for an older person, or they borrow more money in order to try to pay for care for them. So we have the whole business of austerity actually affecting people's personal levels of living, indebtedness, and hopes within our society. None of this is necessary. And so, we go campaign on a principle of social justice, a principle of the way in which people are treated. And universal credit and benefit system is so brutal. I was just given a letter. I just spoke to Charlie, who's here today. She wrote me a letter about her son who was born with Down syndrome in January 2017. Sadly, her partner died very suddenly, a little bit later when they got home. And she was told then that her benefits would be reduced by 25% because she had 3 children and her partner passed away. And the benefits would be reduced from the 25th of December. I mean, you couldn't make it up. The brutality of it. She goes on to say, I'll just quote this part of the letter. I expected after paying taxes for over 20 years that there would be support for me and my family when we needed it most. But it wasn't, and I found that there are thousands more women in similar situations across this country. And I promised myself that if ever I got through this, I would tell my story and try to change this. That's why she's joining our campaign to get rid of this government and universal credit. And our campaign is for them and with them and part of that campaign. But it's also about the future, how we develop in this country. My good friend John McDonnell, who's our Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, has worked very, very hard an anti-austerity economic strategy. One that's based on the development of a national investment bank for all parts of this country with regional transformation funds, a bank that will invest in new jobs, new industries and sustainable industries for the future. Because if we don't do that, what happens? We go more and more into short-term employment, short-term contracts, insecure employment and greater inequality within our society. And I thank John and others for all the work they've done in developing that policy. I wish I could reveal to you, leak to you indeed, our manifesto. There's still some bits being finished off today, but I tell you this, our manifesto will be even more transformative than the one we had in the 2000s. If we don't do that, then what's the future? What's the future for young people? What's the future for older people? What kind of world are we going to live in? I know what direction the Tories want to take us. They've shown that they will give tax giveaways to the very richest, create even greater inequality, and their whole idea of future trade relationships are with the philosophy and economics of Trump and the right in the USA. Right. Well, our view of the world is a very, very different one. It is about social justice, it is about equality, it is about sustainability. But it's also about rights of people. Because if you are living in insecure housing, if you don't have the public services you need, if you don't have the secure job that you crave, and when you are in work, you don't have much security or many rights, life is not easy and the levels of stress get worse and worse. And I can't believe there isn't a connection between the levels of personal indebtedness and stress and the high levels of mental health illness across the country. Security is in employment. Day one, full rights at work. In the ethnicity pay gap as well. Look at all those issues, but also empower workers to have a say in the way their company is run, empower workers when a company goes under, the right to take it over and give the option of doing that, use the skills, the brilliance, the imagination of people in our society to run the economy better together, and develop a sustainable future for us. And so our industrial strategy is one that is also sustainable, as is our issues of economic and social justice. I do think that the privatisation policies of Margaret Thatcher and the Tories in the 1980s were short-sighted. Our public services were sold off, very low prices, and a great deal of money has been made out of those public services by the private sector. Take, for example, the water industry, sold off very cheaply, assets stripped to within an inch of its life by those companies, not investing sufficiently in the infrastructure to the extent that we now waste enough water every year through leakages that would fill Loch Ness. And all the while, profits being siphoned off, many of which end up in tax havens somewhere or other. So I have no hesitation whatsoever in saying a Labour government will bring the water industry into public ownership. Golden hello to its new chief executive, whilst at the same time postal delivery workers all over Britain are so stressed by the environment in which they're forced to work, they want to leave the job altogether. They like the delivery part of the job, they hate the sorting office culture and the pressures and stress that go with it. So I'm with the CWU in their campaign on this. And re-merge with the post office, with the post bank and post offices in our high streets as an anchor to our local communities and the local development that goes with them. So that is the kind of philosophy that our government will adopt. Our government will be one that is for democracy, that is expanding the public realm, which is about public involvement in the running of water industry, Royal Mail, and so on. And rail companies have, I think they've made quite enough out of our rail system. The whole system was brought into public ownership of our railway network. It's about the integration of our public transport system so that we do have bus services worthy of the name, and we particularly reinvigorate rural bus services and suburban bus services as the only realistic way. And so our policies in all those areas have been carefully thought out and carefully worked out, because as a party of 500,000 members, we have an awful lot of brilliant experts to contribute to those discussions and those debates. Now, our friends here who've just gone taught us all a lesson over the last few months about the climate emergency and about the danger to our planet. I've sat down with primary school students in my own constituency and listened to what they have to say, as I've done all the time I've been the MP for my area. 20 years ago, if I'd gone to a primary school classroom and said, what do you think about climate change? They'd have probably just looked at me blank. No. Or just said, what are you talking about? Or it's wet today or something. There wouldn't have been that take-up on it. There wouldn't have been that engagement, that interest. I went to a primary school recently, sat down with a group of students and just asked them to tell me about the issues. The incredible level of knowledge and understanding they have is very, very impressive. And so that determination, that global determination to do something has actually caught on in a way that those of us that have been involved in environmental issues all of our lives only dreamt would ever happen. The reality now is there is global warming, there are extreme and unusual weather patterns. There is a real climate emergency and an environmental disaster happening at the present time. Barry Gardner and I went on behalf of the Labour Party to the Paris Climate Change Conference in 2015. It was fascinating. Fascinating, a big seminar that Naomi Klein and myself did with a lot of people there. Fascinating because of the stories that were being told on behalf of and with the poorest people in the poorest countries in the world that have not contributed to global warming, that have not contributed to the levels of pollution and degradation that the richer industrial countries have done. And they told their story about water shortages, about environmental degradation, about environmental refugees that are flowing around the world. Paris was important because it made a step forward. Important because it set a target for zero emissions. But it's nowhere near enough. It's got to go a lot further. And the Labour government in office, hosting COP26 in Britain next year, would want it all to go a lot further and a lot faster. But it's also about what we do ourselves within our own society. You can look at the climate emergency and the environmental emergency and add up all the figures. Add up climate change, add up global warming, add up the rate of extinction of mammals, and add up the rate of the destruction of the biodiversity on which we all rely. And say, well, goodness, this is terrible. What should I do about it? Best thing is, I'll go and live in a tent in a forest somewhere and hope it all goes away. I'll sort of get off and just go away. But we're a country of 65 million people, the option is not there. The only options there is to actually approach this with confidence, with determination, and with understanding of it. And that's why we've been looking at how we can do things differently within this country. Differently, the way we generate electricity, by a green industrial revolution, by investment in wind, wave, solar power, by investment in big projects like Swansea Bay and Mersey Barrage, but also in wind farms around the coast of this country. Manufacture those turbines here. Yes. Manufacture that equipment with the highly skilled people we have all over this country. And after I first spoke about the Swansea Bay Lagoon, the following week I was with a group of apprentices at GE in Rugby, an engineering company. And the apprentices there said, fantastic, your ideas about Swansea Bay Lagoon. They're not actually mine, they're many other people's ideas. And they said, fantastic, because we can make the turbines that you will need in that thing. And you add that up all around the country, what we can achieve from this. I was at Fawley a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Fawley near Southampton, where there was an oil-fired power station. It's now the final assembly line for wind turbine blades. Good transfer of technology. And there's plenty of other examples like that all around the country. We believe that we can create around 300,000 jobs in green energy and sustainable energy economics. But it's also about what we do in retrofitting homes, the way we can reduce people's bills by proper investment in insulation of people's homes. We can cut people's bills by £400 a year. By investing in a bus service, you cut down on pollution, you cut down on congestion. By an agricultural policy that maintains levels of biodiversity and sustainability, you improve that level of biodiversity, which actually means you get better crop production in the future because of the biodiversity that goes with it. It's about having that understanding of the sustainability of this world. We cannot go on pouring stuff into rivers and stuff into the sea, imagining it's going to go away. You cannot go on wasting plastic and the materials that go to make up plastic and ending up in the ocean, killing whales and other very important mammals as a result of that. And so I want to lead a government that is very, very serious in its green industrial revolution and in its sustainability ideas, and also work with others around the world on this. Because I don't know if you saw it, last night there were films on the television about what's happening in New Delhi at the moment, where the smog is worse than the pea soup smogs in London in the 1950s, but they're even more poisonous and noxious, and killing older people and younger people and any vulnerable people in that city. It's not good enough to say, stay indoors, there's pollution out there. It's not going to go away just because you're inside the house, any more than children living alongside major roads in this country suffer loss of lung capacity before they even reach school age because of what they're breathing in. So I want this election to be, yes, about our offer on Brexit, yes, on all of our offers on social justice and on education. I also want it to be an election about our environment, an election about our environment and how we face the future in a sustainable way. Previous industrial revolutions have resulted in a movement of wealth from the poorest to the richest. This industrial revolution will empower all communities to live a sustainable life because of the way in which we are going to go about it. We as a party were founded by people of enormous vision. Those that came out of the 19th century campaigns for the right to vote, for education, for pensions, for a society that cared for each other. Many of our principles, such as the National Health Service, came out of the sustainability of working class communities supporting each other. Our NHS came from Tredegar in South Wales, where nine developed our movement and developed our party. I see what we're offering in this election on the shoulders of those people that went before, a vision of what the future can be like. And so when you're campaigning in this election, expect a bit of grief from some of the media, expect a bit of grief from the far right and the medium right and the Tory right and all the other rights. Expect all of that. But go out there with confidence, but also go out there to listen. Go out there to listen, because the only strength of our party is our membership and our strength of support, but it's also our ability to listen to people in their communities and learn from them. So when you've got that sense of a community coming together and that community of understanding, they're very, very powerful. You know yourselves, if you get in a campaign to defend an A&E department, to defend a nursery, to develop a park in a better way, all kinds of things. At the end of it, when you've won that campaign, you feel very strong. Even when you haven't won that campaign, you've learnt a whole lot of things together about each other and the strength of your feelings in your community. Those women that demanded the right to vote in the early 1900s and then eventually won it through very militant action indeed. They are the people that have delivered the democracy that we have got. So when we go into this election campaign, remember all those that went before, but also remember what we can achieve. A national education service, education as a right, not a commodity, education where you don't go into debt in order to go to uni, you do get an apprenticeship if that's what you want, with equal status to that of going to uni. You do get a nursery place for all 2 to 4-year-olds. You do get a free school meal when you're at primary school, and your head teacher doesn't have to go to the school gate with a begging bowl just to keep the school open. We put the money properly into education where it is. We've got, and I'm delighted to be here supporting you today in Gloucester. I'll be going to as many marginal constituencies as I can get to. I've been to 90 in the past 2 years, and I've been to 8 already in this campaign. Don't worry, the numbers are ratcheting up very nicely. It's all right, mate, don't ratchet up, it's fine. But this election, when we win it, who wins? The nurse wins, the doctor wins, the engineer wins, the pencil wins. Not to elect individuals into office, wonderful as Fran is and everybody else. It's about the kind of society we create. That democratic, inclusive society where we do not leave people behind. I don't want to live in a country reliant on food banks and walking past the homeless in the streets. I don't want to live in a country that has a mental health crisis because of the stress we impose on people in life. I don't want to live in a country that walks by on the other side to human rights abuses around the world. I want to live in a country where we care about peace, justice, sustainability and democracy around the world, as well as social justice and democracy.
make space for us.
Can you believe that I've got to follow this guy? I feel like a busker that has to follow Beyonce. Like, I've got my ukulele, like I'm going to do when I'm cleaning windows now. Honestly, it is fantastic to be here. I might have a bit of a reputation as an obnoxious Londoner, and indeed that is all true, but Gloucester's got a really special place in my heart. There are some old friends of mine back there. Shout out to you, man! So it is wonderful to be here with hundreds of you, all here for the same cause, which is Corbyn by Christmas.